Behold, for they possess a secret unparalleled in this world. They will never surrender to the power of Morpheus, nor will they accept change until the final purification. When the noble blood is shed, those who are built up will be granted imperishable life. This time will surpass eternity, and eternity will be blessed. The girl turned to Angie and asked if she had finished cooking. Angie replied that she was ready. Today, for the first time in her life, Angie was invited to the Duke's estate. She lives on Cullinan Island, where thick forests of bamboo grow and blue waves splash against the shores. An island that has been rebuilt by the survivors of a devastating war on the mainland, turning it into a thriving place. Here, people of different races coexist peacefully together, bound together like kin. Guided by Kalum's faith, they follow the same goal. Angie moved to Cullinan Island with her parents when she was just a baby, and remembers nothing of the mainland. But she doesn't feel the need for those memories because she loves this island with all her heart, because she can't imagine a place more perfect than this. And it's all made possible by the favor of the Duke and his family. Angie rides in the Duke's carriage and marvels at how beautiful she is. The girl finally realizes what's really going on. After all, even last night she couldn't realize it. To think that she, of all people, was the one who was invited to keep Lord Kylek company. Kylek Roden Blackwell is the sole heir to the Blackwell family, the ruler of this island, an unfortunate young aristocrat that was trapped within the walls of the manor due to a long and struggling illness. Mother told Angie that she would visit Lord Kylek once a week to keep him company. His long illness had made him very picky and sensitive, so he might treat the girl with hostility, but she should try to understand him for the sake of everyone who owed a debt to the Blackwell family. Angie stood in front of the gate, wondering if he would like what she had prepared for him. The girl was greeted by a woman. Her name was Louise Dunst. She was the head maid of the Blackwell family. Louise invited the girl inside as the young master was waiting for her. As Angie walked towards the lord, she looked at the palace and marveled at its beauty inside. It was very luxurious, yet elegant. It felt as if this place was from a completely different world. As the girl climbed the stairs, she saw portraits, but one was empty, and the girl assumed that maybe it was supposed to be Lord Kylek's portrait, and she couldn't even guess what he looked like. Perhaps he had the same gray-blue eyes as Duke Edward Blackwell. The girl had been so preoccupied that she had forgotten she had to follow the maid. So when Louise saw that the girl was not with her, she called out to her and told her that there were a few things the girl must remember. First, she must not see Mr. Kylek's face, and as she already knew, he was not feeling well. So if she thinks something is wrong, she should call for help. Secondly, she should only answer when asked, and the girl should refrain from making unnecessary comments. Louise knocked on the gentleman's room and asked if she could come in. When they entered the room, Louise wanted to say that she had brought the girl, but Kylek interrupted her and said that he did not wish to have visitors here. Rumor has it that the reason Mr. Kylek does not leave the estate is because of the intensive chemotherapy he underwent during his long illness, which disfigured his face. His terrifying appearance could make people numb, as if they were facing the Gorgon Medusa itself, and that's why no one dared to look at him. Angie thought about how that was probably why he didn't want her here. She was, and the girl was a little nervous, but not because of his face. Louise apologized to Lord Kylek for not asking his permission before. The Lord replied that she couldn't disobey his father's orders, so he would forgive her today. But next time, he would no longer be so merciful, and asked her to leave him alone. Louise took Angie by the shoulder and told her to do what she came to do. The girl stood there wondering what she should do and if it was okay for her to be here. She remembered her mother's words that for the sake of all of them who owed a debt to the Blackwell family, she should do this. But Angie couldn't understand what she should do if Mr. Kylek himself was chasing her away. Suddenly from the master's bed came his voice for the girl, but not to get too close, and sat down by the window. Angie did as the Lord told her. Then Kylek asked the girl what her name was. The girl answered that her name was Angie Risdell, and that she was the daughter of the Risdell family who lived in a house on the north coast. Kylek asked why she had come here, and the girl replied that she had the great honor of being his companion. Angie was worried that the Lord would find her story boring, but since he had decided to keep her here, She wanted to tell him what she had prepared. She turned to Kylek and told him that she was here to tell him a story. She asked him if he would like to hear it, but it was just a figment of her imagination. After the girl received the invitation from the Blackwell family, she thought about how her greatest passion was reading and embroidery. Those are the skills she is most confident in. But her lace would never impress a young aristocrat accustomed to luxury, and the many books he must have read while he was locked up in the mansion far surpassed her own modest collection, which meant that no existing story would be new to Lord Kylek. But still, the girl supposed that even to him it might have happened. So one sunny afternoon, he closed his book, looked out of the window, and noticed the outline of clouds floating by, reminiscent of a scene from a fairy tale he had just finished reading. And perhaps at that very moment the thought occurred to him that he wished to speak to someone who had imagined the same picture as he had. Perhaps that was the reason why she had been chosen to be his companion among all the children on the island. Angie told the gentleman that there might be some stories she could tell him that he already knew, but that there were also stories to which she had made up the endings, and if he would be so kind as to listen to her and share her thoughts. Then she will tell him of her own thoughts and intentions. If he says it is nonsense, she will not be offended. Kylek replied that even if she was offended, it wouldn't affect him in any way. But anyway, he offered to tell him the story. The girl was very excited at the news, and the Lord said that if the stories turned out to be just absurd nonsense, he wouldn't hesitate to throw her away. Angie replied that she understood, and thought about how she just needed to do what she always did. After all, everyone in the church loved her stories. The girl asked Kylek if he was familiar with the story of Come Seville, and asked permission to tell him about this ancient Greek prophetess. As the girl spoke, her throat burned with thirst, and the look from behind her veil made her furious. But Mr. Kylek let her finish the story without interrupting her or sending her away. When Angie finished the story, the Lord told her to come and see him, same time next week, and wished her a safe journey, and even called her by name. She was a little scared at first, but he didn't seem to be as hard to please as she thought. As Angie was leaving the palace, she was thinking about telling him next time, but Mr. Kylek was watching her from the window. In the middle of the night, the man tried to drag the boat out to sea, saying that he could finally escape this cursed island. He remembered his mother and father telling him that didn't he know what a precious blessing his life was. And Duke Blackwell had gathered all the survivors of that terrible war and allowed them to live in prosperity on this island. Elliot replied that this mainland was nothing but a living hell. He thought that his mother and father didn't understand anything because every day on this island, the world is so much bigger than this place that there is so much to explore. He has plenty of food and water, so he decided to get off this island. As Elliot floated down the river, he couldn't believe it was so easy to get off the island, and that no one had ever tried to do it before. He saw a windmill that marked the border between Cullinan Island and the outside world, and the guy thought it was much bigger and that once he passed it, he would finally escape from the island. But suddenly something hit him and cut his cheek. But then as he got closer to it, it killed him. Angie was sitting outside embroidering, and people started coming up to her and admiring what an incredible talent she had for embroidery and what a fine lace she had, and started asking her what her secret was. The girl was very pleased, and someone asked her what the flowers she embroiders on each piece are called. Angie answered that these flowers are called velvets, and she uses them instead of her name, that is, instead of her signature. After all, these are her favorite flowers, and every time she sees them, it makes her feel very warm. So one day she would like to make clothes inspired by these flowers, clothes that will make someone smile. One of the girls told Angie not to doubt herself, and she will do it, because she creates the most incredible clothes on Cullinan Island, because Angie will be her personal seamstress. It was Letitia Durbin who was the only daughter of the ducal administrator. Letitia offered Angie to sign a contract with her, but suddenly the girl overheard a conversation that said that there were rumors that small animal corpses had been found in the forest, and the girl was very concerned about it. Suddenly a guy came running and called everyone to tell the news that Elliot's body had been thrown to the southern coast. People were dumbfounded, for Elliot was the only son of the Hawkinses who ran the distillery, and that it seemed last night he had tried to leave the island by boat, and that it must be God's punishment for betraying him. Duke Blackwell's favor. The adults said that Elliot tried to leave the island last night and was attacked by a pack of sharks and died, an incident that shocked everyone on Cullinan Island and left Elliot's parents inconsolably grieving for days on end. Angie had never seen anyone grieve so much before. While she was thinking about all this, Mrs. Hawkins came to her and asked her where she was going, and it was beautiful weather, like God's grace. Angie was very surprised at Mrs. Hawkins's good mood, for yesterday she had been grief-stricken, but now she was smiling so brightly, and there was not a shadow of sadness on her face, as if someone had erased her memories. Angie sat discussing the story with Lord Kylek and said that Mrs. Hawkins's behavior seemed a little strange to her, and she had never felt sadness before, so she was curious if it could disappear in a moment. The boy replied that there might be more to it than meets the eye, and offered her a cup of tea, for she seemed shocked by what she had seen, and it would be good for her to calm down. The girl thanked him and poured herself some flavored tea. Kylek said that since they were talking about it, he advised to keep his observations strictly between the two of them, because the girl found Mrs. Hawkins's behavior strange. Others might think she was suspicious because she was having these thoughts. Angie said she understood and would be more careful, and thanked Kylek. The girl thought about the fact that she hadn't even considered she hoped he didn't find her comments objectionable, and was surprised that he had listened to her from start to finish, and hoped that she had been able to interest him. The Lord said that if she had any common sense, she would, even if he didn't say anything. The girl thought that it seemed she had jumped to conclusions, and said that this tea had a lovely flavor. And it's a little different from the pink tea that everyone usually drinks. Kylek replied that if she liked it, she could take the tea leaves with her, and he would let Louise know. Angie was very happy, appreciative, and grateful to him for that. Kylek said he would like to talk about the story she told him last time. All she talked about was Sevilla, the priestess of Cum, that desired immortality and was given a gift from Apollo of 1,000 years of life while she watched. As her body faded over those long years, she realized that this was not a blessing at all, but a curse. Angie said it was just as he said. Kylek asked what her answer would be if Apollo came to her and offered her immortality and eternal youth. Immortality and eternal youth. The girl answered that she would have rejected his offer. The guy was very surprised by her answer and asked why she thought so. Angie replied that she probably would have accepted the gift without question at first, but the beauty and meaning of life come from their ephemeral nature, and even the most exquisite flowers fade when their lifespan comes to an end, and new shoots sprout in their place. Kylek replied that indeed immortality meant nothing to her. The girl replied that it did, although she was sure that many people would like to live forever, and asked what the Lord himself thought about it. Kylek could not believe that there was someone like this girl left on the island, but suddenly there was a knock at the door. It was Louisa, who came to take the girl away because the time was up. The girl said goodbye and said she would be back next week. When Angie left, Louise asked the boy if the maid meant Angie. Kylek pulled back his veil and said that Louise didn't call her that because he was in a bad mood at the mere mention of the word. Kylek asked his father what cure meant, and if someone was chosen to be his cure, what would happen to them. His father replied that when his blood chooses someone, there is no turning back, and from that moment on, the cure belongs to him forever. Kylek asked him if that's why he killed his mom, because she was his cure. The cure is the one who protects the master by offering his blood until he is skin and bones, and it all started with a terrible curse. A curse born of something humans should never have dared to desire. That was why Kylek reacted so strongly to Louise's words, because he would never follow the same path as his father. The girls were sitting at the table discussing something. One of the girls said that the Duke had other heirs, and she had heard adults talking about it a few years ago. Duchess Eugenia had given life to many children, even twins, but they all died shortly after birth except Lord Kylek, who survived, and then the Duchess passed away, and the drug Lord Kylek was taking disfigured his face, and she heard that he usually hides it, and then he's becoming like a creepy monster, and people seem to be worried because the Duke of Blackwell is not well, and his only heir is locked up in the manor. Not to mention that Lord Kylek has a bad temper, and that's why he beats the servants every day. When Angie heard that, she said that the girl was jumping to conclusions, because Lord Kylek is not like that at all. He may be a little rough, but he is actually quite sensitive and perceptive. The girl asked how she knew that and whether she had seen him in person or heard it from someone. Angie hesitated, for she could not tell that she was really Lord's companion, and her mother had told her to keep it a secret. But the girl said it seemed wrong for her to keep up such gossip, when it was the Duke's virtue that allowed them to live well. Letitia said Angie was right. After all, they had no right to judge his character, though his face was surely repulsive. Angie didn't know what to say because she didn't know what he looked like, and all she knew was that he was tall and had a low voice, and despite his inherent coldness, he was attentive to others. She hadn't thought about his face until now. She'd been afraid of him at first just because she expected to be thrown out. But strangely, she couldn't get Letitia's words out of her head. Angie sat in Kylek's room waiting for him and was told that he was doing business in his office, so she might not be able to see him today, or he might be late. The girl had been waiting for him for 20 minutes, and she was starting to feel drowsy, so she went to the window and looked out at the scenery that he saw every day. Angie thought about the beautiful scenery outside his window, but it was a pity that he could only see it from a distance, and that she didn't know how sick he was, but she would like to go for a walk with him. When Kylek came back, he saw the sleeping girl sitting by the window. He took a plaid and covered her shoulders. When Kylek was doing his business in the study, Jerome Hamilton, who was the manager of the Blackwell estate, told him about the rumors that had spread among the children. Kylek concluded that the girl probably thought he was some hideous monster, but Jerome replied that it wasn't that because Angie had actually protected him and was the only one who had done so, and if the rumors are making Kylek uncomfortable, then he will take care of it. The Lord replied that there was no need to worry about such nonsense, and that he would just keep an eye on them for now. Kylek came into the room and put a plaid over her shoulders, and thought about how it was that Angie's mindset was so different from the rest of them, and because of that, he wanted to expect more. He wished Angie would wish him suddenly. The girl woke up, and Kylek told her not to open her eyes. Angie couldn't understand what was going on, and if it was really Lord Kylek, and why he wasn't behind the canopy. The Lord told the girl to go home today, because he still had things to do that needed his attention. Angie noticed that he smelled of roses and said that she would be leaving now, but Kylek said that from now on, he would like her to visit him 3 times a week, and that he would like to hear the stories she told him more often. The girl was very excited, and asked if she really could. Kylek smiled, and said that he would look forward to her coming. It's a cottage on the north coast that the girl's parents look after, and she helps them with chores, and sometimes she comes here for some fresh air. The cottage sits next to the northern cliffs, which means that in the summer it can feel pleasantly cool. The girl was hanging the laundry and saw the roses already blooming, which means that soon the harvest will begin. At this time of year, the Blackwell family creates powder from Bengal roses, which the islanders mix with water before drinking. Angie walked over to the roses and noticed they had a simply divine fragrance. They had a pleasant but not overpowering scent, subtle and persistent, almost like Kylek's scent. Suddenly, she remembered what he had said, and she couldn't believe he would say such a thing. The more time she spent at Blackwell Manor, the more she wanted to know what kind of man Lord Kylek was. Once Angie asked the Lord if he could open the canopy a little, but he said absolutely not, and the girl concluded that he could be unwaveringly strict. One day, Louise came up to the girl with a stack of boxes and said that Mr. Kylek had ordered them to be given to her because she liked the cookies so much that the girl realized that he could still be as warm as the rays of the setting sun. Angie asked Kylek what food he liked best. Maybe he had some favorite dessert or maybe fruit. But the gentleman said she was asking stupid questions, and the girl concluded that at times she felt like he was drawing a line between them. She also remembered reading him a book about a princess who fearlessly risked her life in battle, finally triumphed and saved her father, making the king truly regret his foolishness. The Lord smiled and said that the girl had a talent to turn any tragedy into comedy, and the girl was glad that she managed to make him laugh. So the girl noticed that from time to time he let his guard down, was curious what expression he had on his face when he looked at her. One day she would like to see the man hiding behind the veil. Suddenly, the girl heard some sound in the bushes, and the girl remembered that there were rumors that animals were mysteriously dying in the woods. At that moment, she heard her mother's voice asking if Angie had hung up the laundry. The girl replied that she was on her way and ran into the house. It turned out that Kylek was in the bushes watching the girl. Angie got up from the carriage and thanked the man for driving her, because the weather was fine today, and she could walk the rest of the way. The man replied that it was an excellent idea, and that she should take a walk in the garden. The girl saw the wonderful flowers she had picked, and she wondered how Kylek would react to them, and she couldn't wait to give them to him. It seemed that many years had passed since the girl had first chosen to walk this way. The touch of warm sunlight and the sweet scent of flowers wafting through the air. Soon it would be autumn, and time would go on, leaving countless traces behind. And eventually, before she knew it, she would be 18. Angie knocked at the palace, and Mrs. Dunst opened the door, and the girl smiled at her. 3 years passed during this time, which seemed to the girl both long and fleeting at the same time. Her relationship with Lord Kylek underwent many changes. Once, when Angie was telling another story, Lord Kylek said that the girl could address him as Kai. The girl said it was getting rather late, and Kai told her that dinner had already been prepared so she would not forget to eat. Before he left, he added that if she wanted, she could eat in his room. When the girl was at Kylek's again, she said that she liked his assortment of fine teas, as she usually only drank pink tea. The Lord replied that he just wanted to give her another reason to visit the place. Her bond with Lord Kylek grew stronger, and every time he spoke, she found herself wishing she could get a glimpse of him. Unlike Psyche, who used a candle to illuminate the face of the god of Eros, Angie would not have had the courage or the recklessness to even glimpse him. And now 3 years had passed. When the girl was at the Lord's house, Kylek told her that she had caught a cold again. However, during the winter it happens to her all the time. Angie replied that this time it wasn't so bad because she only had a small cough. Kai answered that it was the same thing she said last year, and that he didn't like it, and if there was anything she wanted. The girl asked what exactly he meant by that, and the guy replied that her birthday was coming up, so he would like to give her a present. Memories of presents from the last 3 years flashed before her eyes, and she was puzzled because he usually just surprised her without even asking. Kai said that she was about to turn 18, and he wanted to give her something in honor of her coming of age, and the girl was very embarrassed by this surprise. And sometimes it seemed that he read her mind, as if he was looking her straight in the eye and wondering what she really wanted. She appreciated everything he gave her, so she didn't have to think about it, and if there was a chance, he would fulfill her wish. At that moment, suddenly Kylek started coughing up blood. The girl wanted to run up to him to help him, but the guy told her not to come any closer and to stay where she was, and at that moment, Louise and the doctors came running. Angie was very disturbed at the sight of the whole situation. If he had given her permission to make one wish, she would have asked permission to cross that line separating them. Then she would have run up and put her arms around him. The priest said that he was proclaiming the gospel that he had preached to them. If they followed the word of the sermon faithfully, they would be saved because of that gospel. Angie prayed in the temple and wondered if Lord Kylek was feeling any better, for her cold was nothing compared to the pain he was experiencing, and it had happened many times before. But it seemed that today his condition was especially severe, and the girl hoped that her prayer would reach heaven. When the girl left the temple, she saw 2 people in black cloaks in the distance, and she wondered who it could be, and the girl concluded that maybe they were discussing something very important, and she should not worry about it, and especially it was late, she had to go home because her mother and father were waiting for her at home. When Angie got home, her parents told her she'd gotten a letter from the Blackwell house. The letter said that Angie was probably shocked by what had happened this afternoon, and as much as he would like to talk to her in person, his present condition did not allow him to do so, so he decided to write to the girl. And for the time being, he would have to concentrate on his treatment. However, as he said earlier, he would like to give her something special for her birthday, So the guy wished to let her know what she wants, and as soon as he's well enough. And will return to his bedroom on the 3rd floor, and he hopes the girl will be the first person he sees. Angie realized that this letter from Kai was very touched by him, and she thought about the fact that if he continued to take care of her like this, while he himself was suffering, she wouldn't be able to help herself. While Mr. Kylek was reading a book in his room, Louise approached him and told him that he needed a blood transfusion for the cure immediately. But Kylek replied that he wasn't going to do that, and that he would never hurt her. Angie responded to the letter that Kai sent her, saying that she didn't have the words to express how relieved she was to receive his letter, because she was worried about him, and she sincerely hoped that his treatment will go smoothly. And no matter how long it takes, she is looking forward to welcoming him back to her room and not needing anything as a birthday present. But she has a wish that he can fulfill, but she doesn't know if he'll want to do it because she'd like to see his face. As Kylek read the letter, he thought about how Angie had no idea what thoughts he had every time he saw her, when he sees her, when she has a genuine smile on her face that other drugs didn't have, when she speaks her mind without thinking about what others will think, and when she gives up the eternal life that others long for others and instead accepts the value of mortal life. He catches himself thinking that he is enchanted by her, as if he has been struck by some mystical power. He is captivated by her pale, delicate hands, luxurious hair, sparkling eyes and cheeks that turn pink when she's shy, and she doesn't suspect he tries to control himself. When he sees her lovely lips, and when his secrets are revealed, will she stay by his side even after everything she learns about him? Angie said that her mother always makes great desserts, replying that since she can't beat this cold, she should at least eat her favorite dishes. The girl thanked and enjoyed the goodies that her mom had prepared for her. Her mom also offered her to drink honey water, all she had to help her with her cough, and what she hates watching her suffer every winter, and it seems the medicine doesn't help either. Her father said that as soon as she felt better, she should have some rose tea. Angie's mom confirmed his words and added that rose tea works wonders, and that's why everyone on this island drinks it like water. And that's what she'd heard. What she had heard about the girl teaching the children how to sing in church. The girl said that Letitia had asked her mom to help her and asked if the kids were doing well. Angie said they were like adorable little sparrows, and that they mostly learn children's songs. But she said that next time the girl should prepare something of her own, and she is still thinking what songs to choose, and maybe she could learn with them. Songs about the sea or the night. And at that moment the girl started to hum some melody, but suddenly she asked her mother if she had taught her that melody, but she said she had never heard it before. Neither had her father heard it, and whether Angie was sure they had sung it to her. The girl answered that she didn't know, but it suddenly popped into her head, and it seemed very strange to her. Her mom said that it was getting close to bedtime, so they should get ready for bed, and that tomorrow was her birthday, and she wanted to make something special. As Angie lay in her bed, she couldn't get the tune out of her head and couldn't think of who might be humming it to her, and she fell asleep. When the sun, kissed by the rain and wind, would be hidden behind the sea horizon, and the stars would quietly shine in the sky, and the light of the crescent moon would shine all around her, her eyes would still shine brighter than anything else. A girl had a dream that she was standing in the middle of a field of wonderful flowers, and a guy was calling her and asking if she could hear him and see him. But the girl couldn't understand how it could be. The guy said if she knew the song too, and if she knows it. He asked her to answer. Suddenly, he started running towards her and grabbed her shoulder. The girl woke up and couldn't understand what it was because it was too vivid and strange for a normal dream, and the guy seemed very real. Suddenly, there was a knock at her door and asked if she was awake. Her mom said she was awake and told her to come downstairs because she had a mountain of presents waiting for her, and a gift from the Blackwells had been delivered. Angie looked at the presents and took a present from the Blackwells' house. There was a note on the box that said that this present was for Angie, who loves winter and snow, and it said that Kai wished her a happy 18th birthday, and he was very sorry that he couldn't congratulate her in person, but to let her know that this letter contained his sincerest wishes. And may this day be the happiest and her joy last until tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and may it extend to all the following days, and he is trying his best to get well. So he asked her to wait another 10 days. And then he will give her her real present, and also that with this letter, he sent her a thing called a snow globe, and with it, she will be able to enjoy the snowfall all year round as if her birthday never ended. And he hoped that she would like this gift. The girl admired the beauty Kai had given her. She looked at the snow globe as if she were looking at a scene from a fairy tale, and he had sent her more than enough presents. And she hoped that by real gift he meant his face, and anyway, she was glad to hear he was doing well. Angie's mom came over and looked at the balloon Kylek gave her, and also admired how beautiful it was also. She noticed that it was the first time Lord Kylek had sent her a present for her birthday, and he must have opened it to her. Actually, Kai had given her gifts last birthday, but she was embarrassed about the gifts she received, so she didn't tell her mother and father about them. Her mom also said that Kai's birthday was one day apart. When the girl heard this, she was puzzled because she didn't know that Kai's birthday was right after hers. Her mom replied that if she remembered correctly, his birthday would be tomorrow. Angie said she couldn't believe she hadn't known about it for 3 whole years. Her mom took her hand and said it didn't matter much since the Duke Blackwell and Lord Kylek preferred to keep their birthdays quiet, and it was their unspoken rule that Lord Blackwell was against any form of extravagant celebration, and that the next time he visited, he would have a birthday party. She pretended that she had not heard about it, but the girl asked how she should do it, because a birthday is a special occasion, and she feels sad every time something like that happens, and she also asked what kind of sickness Lord Kai and she were having. Lord Kai in her heart aches for him, while she knows he won't be able to enjoy even these simple pleasures of life, and she is very worried about him and can't do anything about it. Her mom told her that she should never say that in front of strangers, and the Blackwells are an unusual family like theirs, and they are very different from them, which means they carry a heavy burden on their shoulders, and they have to respect their wishes. But if it really bothered her, and why didn't she pray for Lord Kaliak today? The girl wrote him a letter again, and told him that today she had a wonderful birthday celebration. It was filled with heartfelt wishes from a great many people, and she received many gifts. But the best among them was the snow globe he had sent her, and she thanked him for giving her eternal winter, and she would also like to say that she misses him, and as soon as his treatment was over, would she be able to see him in full health, and finally see his smile, and if she could make such a wish. The girl finished her prayer and realized that she had to wait for 4 more days for Kai's treatment to be completed. But suddenly the door of the temple opened, and she heard a conversation in which it was said that he had not done the blood transfusion, which means that the cure will be lost. She could not understand which cure they were talking about and what they were talking about. When the girl went outside, she saw a man walking in front of her, and the girl thought about the fact that she seemed to have seen this man before. Suddenly, he stopped and walked towards the girl. The guy said hello to her and told her that they had probably met before. Angie said that maybe he was mistaken because she hadn't seen him. The guy replied that he was here to help his aunt, and she was the caretaker of the church. The girl said that his aunt's name must be Hester, and she realized that late that night with the woman she saw was Hester. One day, the mother told her that Hester's older sister had died of an illness years ago. A child she had raised alone was born with a weak body, hardly able to leave the house, and she remembered that this boy had albinism, and that's probably why his eyes are purple. The boy asked Angie if she would let him walk her home. It was getting late, and it was dark at night. The girl said it was okay, and after all, she walks this way all the time, and quickly left. The guy looked after her and said he was sorry for what happened, and he didn't even get a chance to tell her his name. Angie was asleep in her bed. She had a dream in which she found herself in the same clearing as the last time, and the guy was calling her again. But the girl could not answer, because it seemed that she could not speak. Suddenly, the clearing caught fire, and the girl couldn't understand where the fire came from. The guy said that they met again, and that she should not forget him, and his name is Martin Silva. And at that moment, the girl woke up and heard some screaming outside the window. Angie noticed that this scream was similar to the one she heard in her dream, so she got herself together and decided to check it out for herself. The girl was walking through the forest, hoping that she would see the source of the sound behind her back. She heard some rustling and thought that maybe it was wild animals. But in fact, there were glowing red eyes that were looking right at her, and she was scared and fell to the ground and saw a huge shadow that was moving right at her. And after a while, Kylek came out of there. He took the girl by the waist and said that how now he would give her a present. but the girl fainted, so Kai took the girl in his arms and said that he didn't know how she got here. But this is a dangerous place, more precisely, this forest and this whole island. The guy asked the girl to hold on a little longer until he had enough strength to protect her, and he swore that he would destroy this curse with his own hands. When Angie was already home, she asked her mom if she knew how she got home last night. Mom asked what the girl meant. Angie asked if they already didn't know she left last night, but her mother had no idea what she was talking about. After all, she and her father hadn't heard anything last night, and if Angie had really gone into the woods, her shoes would have been muddy. But they were perfectly clean, and the front door was locked, and when she went in the girls' room at dawn. In the room, she was sleeping sweetly in her bed as usual, and it looked like Angie had just had a nightmare, and that she should throw away stupid thoughts and her head and start breakfast. But she couldn't understand how it could be from New, because yesterday she had seen with her own eyes that there was someone in the woods, and so beautiful that it was hard to believe in his presence there. In addition, she clearly remembers that what she actually dreamed in her dream was a man standing in a green meadow and shouting his name. The girl decided that if she tells her mother about her dream, she will think something even stranger about her. And later she wants to check it out and find out if Martin Silva really exists. Mother suggested Angie to eat some fruit, and since her cough was not so bad today, why not drink rose tea? She said she would prefer tea with honey and thought it would be better to drink it when she was fully recovered. Her mother put her hand on Angie's shoulder and said that she had heard that Lord Kyliak's condition was gradually improving, and it seemed that the development of the new drug was nearing completion. The girl was very relieved to hear that Kai would be well soon, and she hoped that her prayers had reached the heavens. Angie just wanted to be able to talk to Kai again as soon as possible, even if it meant she would only hear his voice again. A man approached Risdel's house. He was talking to her parents about the mansion's spring cleaning, and usually at this time of year they thoroughly clean the estate. But several of the maids had come down with the flu, so they urgently need to find new people, so he offered to take Angie. The girl saw that behind his back there was a note in his hand, which was probably addressed to her. She discreetly took it, and it said that today Kai would like to give her a real birthday present, and Zachary to ask her for help with spring cleaning. Not that tonight they would meet in the gardens of General Life. The girl was very excited and said she would be happy to help with the cleaning. After a while she was riding in the carriage, and she thought about the fact that it seems the number of lies keeps building up like a snowball, but it's the only way to see him. The General Life Gardens is a greenhouse known as the Shrine of the Heads of the Blackwell family, said to have been lovingly built by the Duke of Blackwell for Lady Eugenia today. In the very center of the shrine, she would meet Kai. When Angie got there, she was stunned to see him, for she remembered seeing him in the woods. Kyliak greeted her, but she couldn't believe her eyes that it was really him, and said that the man she had stumbled upon in the forest was him. Kai replied that she had probably passed out from shock, so he carried her home, and she seemed to remember everything. Angie said that her mother told her it was all a dream and that there was no sign of her going outside. Kai replied that he covered all the signs of her escape because he didn't want her parents to worry. He also wiped off her boot prints in the snow and hung her cape in its place. The girl asked what he was doing in the woods, and she went there because she heard a strange noise, and if that was the reason he was there too. The boy answered that he was also woken up by a strange scream, and it turned out that there was something wrong with the windmills and the sound was coming from them, and later he found out about it from Jerome, but already later, and that it was strange that nobody went to check except her. The girl wondered if the sound could really come from the windmills, and if the screaming was definitely human, but her thoughts were interrupted by Kai, who put his hand on her cheek and asked her if she liked the present. Angie had tried to imagine it many times, and she had no choice but to listen to what other people said. Even in her wildest dreams, she couldn't imagine such a striking face. Kai asked if she minded if he came closer, and that she could push him away at any time if she felt uncomfortable, and he would always respect her wishes. He came closer to her and took her hand, and with his other hand, he brought it to her cheek and kissed it. And the girl mentally answered his question, that how could she not desire him? The girl thought her heart was going to jump out of her chest, and his breath was so sweet that she was overwhelmed by a wave of ecstasy, and her mind was like a fog. and it was definitely not a dream. The girl couldn't believe that she had actually kissed Kai. Kylek asked Angie if she was okay. The girl said she wasn't okay. The guy was concerned, but replied that he had done something she didn't want to do. Angie replied that he hadn't, because she wanted to do it too. But they're from completely different worlds? Kai replied that if she's worried about it, it's not worth it, because she knows better than anyone how valuable she is to him. Meanwhile, Kai's father, who was locked up in prison, turned to Jerome and said that this boy was more precious to him than anyone else, and that he wanted him to live the rest of his life in good health and unharmed. And that is his only wish, and that any remedy is possible, whether it be new drugs or sorcery or medicine, because he must save Kylek at any cost. Kai kissed Angie's hand and said that if she doesn't feel the same as him, that's another matter. But the girl took his hand and said that she feels it too, and she has been waiting for this moment for a long time, and even prayed every night imagining it. The moment when she would stand face to face, she hoped that the day would come when she would finally be able to talk to him, looking him in the eye. But given her humble background, she wasn't sure if they should get any closer. Kai said that his late mother was the daughter of his father's piano teacher. The girl was very surprised when she heard that, because she didn't know. She assumed she was from a family of equal standing to the Blackwell house. Kai went on to say that he was trying to say that the fact that he was Kylek of the Blackwell family would not be a barrier to their relationship, and he just wanted to hear the answer that came from her heart. The girl couldn't forget about what it desires, because they can feel it pounding uncontrollably, and so she replied that she feels the same way about him as he does about her, and she wants to be brave just this once. Kai was very embarrassed by the girl's answer and hugged her. The guy sat in his room and thought about the fact that he had seen her again, the girl with the blonde hair that had been appearing in his dreams lately, and the man next to her was Kyle Blackwell, and he had given his own name, and that it was all very strange, that a girl he'd never seen before kept appearing in his dreams, as did the events happening on Cullinan Island. But what can he do if even he can't be sure that everything he sees in his dreams is real, and it's driving him crazy? Or maybe it's just a coincidence, or maybe it's fate that he shouldn't ignore. The girl sat in the library and thought about their conversation with Kyle. He said that he didn't want to bring it up, but that his treatment would take some time, and the development of the new drug was still a trial and error process. So they probably won't be able to see each other for a while, and he asked if she was going to be okay. The girl said she just wanted him to get better. He said this time his treatment wouldn't last that long so far. She needed to be patient, and there was no need to worry about it now. The girl looked for information about Martin and decided that it really was a mystery anyway, and she didn't see his name in the birthdays book, but she didn't think he was just a figment of his imagination. Still, she never had him. It didn't feel like her dreams were connected. That's why she thought it was one of the islanders, so she decided to dig deeper, because his name might be in the island's registry. Angie asked the man if Martin's name was in the register of names, but the man replied that there was no one with even a remotely similar name, and that there were the names of everyone who had ever lived on the island in the last 20 years. But Martin Silva was not among them. The girl couldn't understand what this meant, and if someone she had never seen could appear in his dreams, she didn't even know if this person existed or not, unless he was a ghost. So the girl decided to ask if there were those who ended badly trying to escape from the island. That is, people like Elliot, who tried to sail a boat through the windmills. The man replied that there were no such cases, and if she wanted, she could look in the death registry. Suddenly, Letitia came in and asked if Angie was still here, and said hello to Michael. She told the girl they'd gotten together to weave guipure lace, and had she really forgotten about that? Angie thought she would look at the death registry next time. Maybe she could see it again in her dreams and get more clues. Letitia noticed that there was something different about the girl. Angie asked what she meant. The girl replied that she looked prettier than usual, and why was she so beautiful today, and what was her secret, and did she start dating someone without telling her a word? Angie thought about what an absurd assumption it was, and did not notice how she blushed with embarrassment. Suddenly, Angie and Letitia were called to the sewing room, but the most interesting thing was that they were called two girls. But the girl remembered exactly that there were three of them, and she decided to say that there shouldn't be one more person with them, but the girls didn't know what she meant. Angie replied that she was quite sure that there was one more member of their embroidery circle, a tall girl with red hair, and she always talked a lot. But one of the girls said that she probably just dreamed it, or maybe she had confused her with one of the characters from her books. Suddenly, Hester came up to the girls and asked if they weaved lace. The girls said they did, and everyone did. Hester said that in that case, they could go home because Duke Blackwell had died today. Kylek, looking at his father's corpse, said his father finally closed his eyes. Though it seemed to him that he was never truly alive, must be exactly what his late mother had told his father, and she was his medicine, his only original sin and the only one he'd ever loved. He was just struck by that thought after his mom died. His dad gave in to his madness and started taking every blood transfusion that was available. And eventually, that's how he met his end. And what will be Kylek's fate if he can break the curse and get his own life back? Angie wondered how that would be possible because she had hoped the Duke would live longer, and she couldn't believe that Duke Blackwell had left them, and she had heard that his condition had worsened. But she hadn't expected him to pass away so suddenly. She wondered if Kai was all right. She worried that he might be trying to deal with his grief on his own. Her mom knocked on the girl's room and asked where Dad was. She said he had just left to help with the funeral arrangements, and in fact she was told that they would need Angie's help too, and it would take a few days for everything to get back to normal. But in the meantime, they would like her to help them with the housework, like last time. The girl replied that she would love to maybe see Kai, or maybe this is a way to call her. The mother said she didn't need to worry about anything. Even though Duke Edward Blackwell was no longer with them, they now had a new Duke, Duke Kylek Blackwell. And as always, they would continue to live with purpose under the auspices of House Blackwell. The girl asked if it was true that everything would be all right. Mother said that Lord Kylek was undergoing treatment now, but they don't know if he will ever be cured, and if his condition doesn't improve, he may have to seek help off the island. Angie was surprised at her mother's words because they're not allowed to leave the island, and the waters around the island are full of sharks, and there are still traces of poisonous gases on the mainland. Mother said she was right, but she should listen carefully to what she was about to tell her. She didn't know the details, but 2 or 3 times a year the sharks migrate, and the full moon deviates from its usual course and turns red. That's when it's possible to cross the sea by boat. Knowing this, the late Duke sailed to the mainland to find a cure 8 years ago, but he lost his servants in a storm. Not a week later, he was forced to return here. That's why he never told anyone about the crossing. If he had, people might have taken dangerous attempts to leave the island, and not knowing the lunar cycle, they might have died like Elliot. Angie asked if that meant the mainland was a safe place. Isn't that different from being made to believe? Mother said it wasn't, and that's why the Duke was desperate enough to leave to get the cure. So she advised him not to fill his head with silly thoughts and not to tell anyone what she'd just told her. The girl said that she had one more question, when the next lunar cycle would be, and her mother said that she didn't know that. Probably only the servants that served in the Blackwell house for a long time were aware of it. And now she had to pack her things, and she'd have to go to the Blackwell house right after the funeral. Angie thought it all very strange, for it had never occurred to her that she might have a chance to leave the island if it were possible. At the Duke's funeral, the people said, "May their Lord rest in peace," and blessed them with holy renewal and rebirth. Angie's mom told the girl to wait for her, and the girl thought about the fact that Kai probably wouldn't be coming. After all, he had never shown up in front of others before. But suddenly, she saw a man standing near her. The girl thought it might be Kai, but it turned out to be a guy with white hair, and he said they hadn't seen each other in a long time. Angie noticed that this guy looked completely different than when they met at the church so much, so that for a moment he reminded her of Kai. The guy said she seemed less surprised than he thought she would be, and he thought he'd catch her off guard by knowing her name. And he had heard a lot about her, for she was Angela Risdell of Cullinan Island, with an incredible talent for embroidery and a love of reading. The girl was very surprised and told him to just call her Angie. The guy introduced himself as Michele Rendell, and he hoped the girl would call him Michele instead of addressing him by his first name, young Mr. Blackwell. The girl went outside and was met by Michele. He asked what she was doing here. Angie replied that she was just out for some fresh air. The guy replied that the atmosphere inside seems pretty heavy and he understands everything. The girl said that she heard that he was suffering from a long illness. Mikhail said that it was very unexpected because he thought that she was not interested in him at all, and to tell the truth, he had recovered not so long ago and started to go out into the world. At times, the air he breathes seems unreal to him, like the fact of the Duke's death, which is also hard to believe, and he hopes that the girl will not have to suffer anymore. Angie said, knowing that he has been in pain for so long, she can only sincerely wish that from now on, he will be happy. The guy said that he will be helping out at the estate today, and he is glad to see her here, and he hoped that the girl was keeping him up to date. Angie replied that she hardly knew about the duties, but the guy was quick to reply that he was sure she was much more capable than he was. The girl thought about the fact that earlier she had mistaken him for a Kai, but now sees that he is drastically different from him as akin to a dark chess piece, while Mikhail embodies the light of ivory light pieces. The boy asked if she wanted to go for a walk, and the girl said she would love to. When they were coming down the stairs, Angie stumbled and almost fell down, thanks to the fact that Michaela caught her in time and asked if she was okay. The girl thanked him, but suddenly the guy saw the marks on the girl's arm and asked how she got them. Angie looked and said she didn't know where she got them from either, and maybe she hurt herself somewhere. Michaeli said he had a better look at them now and could tell that they looked like needle marks, and he had a lot of them too. The girl was very surprised and noticed that they were indeed exactly like hers. But how did she get them if she had never had a shot before? The guy asked if the girl would mind if he took a closer look at them. At that moment, Kyle was watching them and asked how long he would be here. The servant said about 10 days. Kylek thought that it would take some time to adapt because the future holds a lot of changes. The girls discussed what they had been told, that for the moment they should only be in the library or sewing, and the girl suggested that Angie should go to breakfast together. It was Annette, the maid of the Blackwell house. They had become good friends while they cleaned the mansion. Annette came out of Angie's room and said goodnight. She lay down on the bed and thought about the fact that she didn't expect to have a whole room to herself and probably wouldn't see what he had sent her a note today. He said he'd try to come see her, and it's been a long day in general. First they sent a man to rest, and then she met someone and she never found out how she got those marks. And she can't stop thinking about it, because if they really are from the shots, then why doesn't she remember anything? And as soon as she gets home, she's going to ask her mom about it, and it looks like the cold is almost gone. So she could probably start drinking rose tea again from tomorrow after that. The girl drifted off to sleep. And again, she found herself in the same dream in which she was in the middle of a clearing, and Martin was calling her again. But she did not remember telling him her name. Martin kept saying that if she could hear him, then let her answer, or at least to nod her head, and whether she lived on Cullinan Island. Angie wanted to say something, but she still couldn't speak. Martin told the girl to listen to him carefully. All the roses that grow on this island contain drugs, and they should not drink this rose tea. If she did as he said, she could gradually regain her memories, and then she could try to remember who she was before she got to Cullinan Island, and she should definitely remember who she really was. Suddenly, the girl woke up, but the girl didn't want Martin to leave, and she didn't want him to stay a while longer. And at that moment, her hand was covered by a man's hand, and it turned out to be Kai. And he asked her if she had a nightmare because she broke out in a cold sweat. The girl asked him when he came here, and Kylek apologized for coming in uninvited, and he didn't expect her to be asleep. He sent her a note, but he had a lot to take care of. He wanted to stop by for a while to see her also. He was worried and asked if he scared her. Angie was very embarrassed and said he didn't scare her. In fact, the girl was more shocked by the dream she had just had. Martin said something about drugs in the rose tea, and she has to look into it. But now Kai was here, so she couldn't do that. Angie told Kylek that she herself was in fact reassured by the fact that when she woke up, she saw him after the girl noticed that the room was dark. And she said she was going to light a candle, but Kai stopped her and said that he would be leaving soon and would just stay a little longer. The girl asked if he was okay, and he said that he was worried about her, and she must be tired both physically and mentally, and that he was fine, and how could it be different when there was someone who cared for him so much? Kai also added that when his treatment was over, He wanted to talk to her about something, and it was about their future. All morning, the girl couldn't come to her senses because she was very embarrassed that Kai was a good kisser and she lost track of time. She wondered how good he was at other things. But then she thought she was embarrassed. So she distracted herself by thinking that she was glad that his treatment was going well anyway. But she was curious what he wanted to discuss with her. He said it was about their future, but only one thing came to mind. Angie was so absorbed in her thoughts that she forgot that she was pouring tea into a cup. So she got burned, and suddenly she remembered her dream where the guy said that roses contain drugs, and she shouldn't drink that tea. If you think about it, Martin started appearing in her dreams around the same time she started drinking tea with honey for colds, and now she's starting to wonder if it's not just a coincidence, and if she should believe him without proof. But it probably wouldn't hurt to stop drinking this tea. It's been a few days at first. She was nervous about fooling everyone, but eventually she stopped worrying because she wanted to be brave. If it would help to uncover the truth, and because she believed that at the end of the long wait, there would be hope. And then finally, the memories that she had lost began to surface. Suddenly she remembered a tall, red-haired girl. Her name was Lucy. Lucy Perrin. Lucy Perrin. She used to embroider together, and the other girls didn't believe her when she talked about her as if she had just disappeared from their memories, as if someone had erased all traces of her existence. Angie came home and was greeted by her mother. She took her bag and said that the girl must be tired from all the hard work at the mansion. But suddenly the mother took a closer look at the girl's face and asked why she was so pale. She looked emaciated, with dark circles under her eyes, and even her hair was falling out. Angie said that something strange had been happening to her lately. Sometimes a man appeared in her dreams that always said the same thing and kept telling her that she had to leave the island. And at first she thought it was just a dream. But as time went on, she started to get a strange feeling that he was telling the truth. And maybe there's just a lot they don't know about the survivors of the war that live off the island, or about the current state of the mainland that might be safe by now. The mother said that would not do, and that she would take her to Dr. Johnson first thing tomorrow morning. The girl asked why she should go to the doctor since she was not sick, but just wanted to tell her about her dream. But her mother screamed at her to get these absurd thoughts out of her head, and it seems that her fantasy books make it hard for her to distinguish reality from fiction, and she thinks she should stop reading them now and concentrate on her embroidery. Late at night, when Angie was already asleep, her mom came to her room with a bottle with strange contents and poured it into a pitcher of water, and said that they would continue to live happily ever after on this island, and it would always be that way, and she should know that putting herself in the hands of fate is the key to that happiness. Jerome asked the Lord if he could sit down. Kai looked at his arm that was covered in puncture marks and said it was finally over. Jerome asked how he was feeling. The guy said he wasn't bad, but he was a little dizzy. Jerome said he was glad to hear that, because honestly, he doubted that the treatment would be effective, and no one knows when a bout of insanity might strike again. Kai said that, however, that was enough for now, and he would soon invite Angie here to give her the news. Angie's parents come to Louise to discuss the situation with the girl, but the woman says that dreams are just dreams, and nothing more than the person she saw. Angie is just a figment of her imagination. The girl's mom asked if he was a fugitive. Louise said that everyone who tried to escape from the island was caught and punished accordingly. And of course, some had gotten lost at sea, but there was no chance they could have survived if he had started drinking rose tea again. It should not happen again in the future. However, she asked why her cold was the only reason she stopped drinking it, and whether her parents were sure there was no other intent. The girl's mom said that just the tea and honey seemed to help beat the illness, and they would be more careful from now on. Louise said she would give them some sedatives, and as always, they only needed to be added to the water, and guaranteed all night she would sleep soundly and not be seen again. The father asked if that meant their daughter would be all right, and they had heard that Lord Kylek had taken Angie off the list of medications before starting her treatment. The maid said that was the case, and no one had been able to change his mind about it. The girl's parents asked what they knew, that their daughter's blood was a perfect match for Lord Kylek's, but this way, he would have to find another cure. The woman said that they seemed to have grown very attached to Angie over the years, as if they consider themselves her real parents. The girl's mother said that the truth was that they had grown to care for her during the time they had spent with her, and she had never met anyone as sunny and humble as Angie in the world. Louise said that in answer to their question, they had no reason to be afraid, but the Kyleks wanted Angie to be okay if she had any problems with her memory again. They'll just take it to the next step, which is they'll reset her with amnesia. In the mansion sat a man called William Van Armitage. He was the founder of a steel company and a member of the upper house of Parliament. Martin and a girl came to see him. The lad said that it had been a long time since they had last met. Wilhelm replied that indeed it had been a long time since they had seen each other. He asked if he needed a merchant ship to go to the island. Martin replied that he needed it to cover him, and although it was a long time ago from what he remembered, the island was not that far away, and that any boat that could handle a week's journey would be enough for him. Wilhelm replied that it would not be difficult to get one, but would he be all right? For if anything happened to him, it would be bad. Martin replied that he should not worry, and that nothing dangerous would happen to him until he landed on the island. Wilhelm replied that he believed it would, and did he really think he would be able to find the girl he sees in his dreams? Martin replied that he couldn't be sure, but he would like to see for himself, because there shouldn't be any more victims. Wilhelm said that he hadn't seen such a look in a long time. It turned out that Martin had also been victimized by him, kidnapped and taken to the island against his will, and probably countless other children had experienced the same thing just like Wilhelm's daughter. But William didn't believe him then, and said, did he realize what Martin was saying now? Because he was accusing the Duke of Blackwell of taking the children to Cullinan Island against their will, and claiming that their memories were manipulated by people addicted to a drug that was being grown on the island. And so, William thought it was unspeakable nonsense, and that he saved his daughter risked his life. However, Brynn was just lost and wandering around when she attracted the attention of some petty criminals. House Blackwell is a sideline of the royal family of Trieste, and yes, their lineage is the most powerful on the continent, and he has no negative feelings towards them whatsoever. And though he may be the richest man in Wintergard, his wealth pales in comparison to that of this family, and he's not sure where he got these strange ideas, but he would advise him to stop talking about it. Since he saved his daughter, he should reward him handsomely. But Martin said that's how they operate. That is, they target orphans who won't be found if they disappear and send them to the island as sacrifices. And whether he remembers that his daughter was muddy and disheveled when she was found in the pouring rain, those who don't know her might well mistake her for an orphan, and that he doesn't want a reward, he only asks him to use the money to benefit the children of their country and make sure they're not as vulnerable as Martin, and they won't be dragged off to that island. William said he could assume what he said was true, but he wondered why the Blackwell family would want to create such a strange secret organization. If they needed land to grow the drug, an estate on the mainland would have been a much safer option. If they needed manpower, they could hire much stronger people than children. Martin asked if he had heard the name Eternity. William replied that he had never heard of it. The boy said that about 10 years ago the House of Blackwell began practicing a forbidden ritual, and that is that it requires the flesh and blood of children. It allows you to get what people should never were to desire. Angie gave Michaela a beautiful handkerchief that she had embroidered herself. The boy said it was a truly incredible gift. The girl replied that she wanted to repay the people she felt indebted to during her time at Blackwell Manor, and she was sorry she couldn't finish them sooner. Michaela said that he really liked it, and he assumed that she had made it for more than just him, and he couldn't help but hope that it was the first time she had asked to see him, and the first time she had given him a gift, and he thought it was really charming. Angie noticed that the guy did look disappointed, and she had no idea what Mikhail was like. The guy name spelled not quite right forever. The handkerchief had the name Mikhail embroidered on it, but his name was actually Mikhail. The girl apologized and said she made a new one for him, but the guy replied that it was fine, and he was just happy that she now knew the correct spelling of his name. He asked if she had finished her work at the mansion, and from the looks of it, he was going to have to stick around. Angie replied that there didn't seem to be anything else she could do, and the girl remembered her mother telling her that she shouldn't read anymore. And from that day on, she stayed home and embroidered. And for some reason, Martin no longer appeared in her dreams. And she no longer wants to drink pink tea because there may well be things she doesn't know about. Hester said that Mr. Kaliak's succession ceremony is coming up, and it will probably be held within a few months since his treatment is complete, which means he'll be going to the mainland, and that he must have an audience with His Highness, and that she was worried about Michaela and Louise told her not to worry, that she had everything under control, and that first they must find a new cure for Mr. Kylek and prepare for any contingency. And even though Angie Risdel's blood is the most suitable, there's not much they can do, given how adamant the master is on the matter. And while they're on the subject, she's offered to find a child that will suit them at this stage. Angie's parents were talking amongst themselves when they made sure the girl was asleep. Angie's mom said she didn't know how much longer they needed to drug her, and it didn't seem right to her. But her husband replied that she shouldn't let her resolve weaken, because as Louise said, they have no reason to worry now, and they just need to make sure they don't have to move on to the next stage. The girl's mother said that Angie holds a special place in Mr. Kylek's heart, as neither his companion nor his maid, and she saw the gift he sent her from Mr. Kylek. He said it was a thank you for her hard work, but she had never heard him do something like that to anyone else, and had seen the look on Angie's face. She smiled shyly, elated that her embroidery had been used to make this dress. The girl's father said she was right, but there was little they could do, and he thought it was just a passing youthful crush. And Mr. Kylek should understand that even better than anyone else, still considering the burden he has on his shoulders. And he's sure the Lord won't make a reckless decision. In fact, Angie had been awake the whole time and had heard the conversation. She couldn't understand what they were talking about, and she noticed that as soon as she got home, she fell asleep unusually quickly before drinking some water. At first, she wanted to believe it was a side effect of not drinking rose tea, but when she found the note that was hidden in the box with the dress, it said that Kai had finished his treatment. So he invited her in the evening in the dress that was attached to her, and Jerome would be waiting for her at the entrance to the forest. That day, she felt she shouldn't drink the water that brings her mom, so she pretended to sleep. Angie put on her dress and left the house. She couldn't understand why she had been given the drug, and whether it was because the girl had told her about Martin, or because of her fears that her relationship with Kai might develop into something more serious, and what exactly her mom was putting in her water, and what they meant by the next step. The girl decided that she was having trouble thinking straight because there were too many things she didn't know about if everything that was hidden from her was just the tip of the iceberg. Angie ran to the appointed place where Jerome was waiting for her. He asked her why she was running here since she had enough time. He also noticed that the girl was pale and suggested her to take a little breath. Angie said she would like to see Lord Kylek immediately. Even if only for a moment, she wanted to find herself in his arms and leave all her worries behind her. She went to the door and was greeted by Kai, who was very happy that she had come. He was also very happy that he was well, and in fact he looked even better than before. The girl asked him if he was completely cured and if it meant that he would not suffer anymore. Kai replied that he was fine now and that she really liked the dress. It was specially made to his order, and did she recognize the velvet embroidery? Angie said that she loved it and recognized the embroidery because she had made it herself. When she had embroidered it at the mansion, she had never imagined it would be part of her dress. Kylek said he wanted to give her something meaningful. The girl thanked him and called him Mr. Kai, but he said she could just call him Kai because she was the only one allowed to do that. Angie was very embarrassed and looked into his eyes and asked him if he knew what was going on, and if he didn't realize what people thought of them, if he didn't notice the secrets hidden on this island. The girl said that she was not sure she could accept such a generous gift. Kylek replied that she deserved everything, and even more, he was waiting for the day when his treatment would finally end for her. Kylek asked the girl if she could do him the honor of holding her in his arms today.